Hey, good afternoon, everybody. It's Anthony Brinkley coming to you. I am so honored and privileged to be a part of this forum. If you know anything about me, I have a great affiliation and just a great love for your organization. So after I got out of the military at 28 years, one of the best things I've been able to do is lock into your group. So again, this is a great opportunity. But today, I want to talk to you about what goes on in our lives when if we're not careful and we need that jump start to keep us going. Next slide, please. So today is going to be one of those days that we're going to lock in and we're going to look at some things. But how do we get to a point where we even need to be jump started? If you look at this battery that's sitting here, this kind of is reminiscent of something that happened to me. I was traveling on the road and I left my car at the airport. And I knew that my car was sounding a little funny, taking a little time getting ignited, but I didn't pay attention to it until I landed and I tried to get into my car late at night and the car wouldn't start. So they had maintenance people at the airport and they came and they took the hood up. And when they looked under my hood, there was so much corrosion that there was no way that my battery could catch a spark. And sometimes in life, if we're not careful, we allow things to erode in our lives or corrode in our lives to the point where the things that used to bring us passion and pleasure and making us feel good, we don't have a connection with that thing. So just like you were putting those cables in, uh, I had to do that with my life, and it's maybe some of us have to do that with our lives. Next slide, please. But how did we actually get here? If we're all honest with ourselves, these last 12 to 18 months have been extremely, exceptionally challenging. Oh, by the way, I forgot to mention this. If you have a question that you want to chime in at some point, just put it in chat. The box is listed down there where you are, and we can get to that question. So let me keep going. But how did we get here? We have been going through so much in our country, whether it's the discord about the race circumstance, whether it's the financial things, whether it's everything associated with COVID, from people losing their lives, their livelihoods, their ability to move around. And if we're not careful, we get to a point where the things that brought us passion, the things that brought us good feelings, we feel apathetic about it. And what I want to talk to you about is when things get hard, and I'm talking to a group that understands this because you all know what it's like to push through pain. And I tell people pain is like an accelerant. It's if you like gasoline, it's going to push you in one or another direction. But we have to be careful about how we allow pain to move us. For example, if we internalize the things that bother us, that cause us the need to be jump started, what happens inside of us is we have ulcers, or our stomach hurts, or our back hurts, or we have headaches. Do you know that 25% of everything purchased from a pharmacy is stress related? It's within our ability to deal with, so we don't even have to take those pills. And I'm saying that to say, if we allow pain or discomfort to go internally, that's when it's a problem. But if you push through the pain by making the right decision, now if you talk to somebody or even exercise or push past that malaise in your life and you release pain, it has the whole atmosphere to release in. Next slide. So that's what we want to do. We want to find effective ways to release things. So how does that happen? You all see the picture of Usain Bolt, but a lot of people don't notice about Usain Bolt. Even though one of the most noted people in our world with so many things associated with athletics, what a lot of people don't know is when Usain Bolt was a teenager, he had some issues with his spine. His legs weren't even. So him being the runner that he was, that wasn't even conceivable back then. What point am I trying to make? The point I'm trying to make to you is that if you look at this slide, the quote on the slide, he says, I trained 4 years to run 9 seconds. And some people, when something gets hard in their life, they give up after 2 months. My question to you, and the question I ask myself is, are there things in my life that got hard and I just said, I put it down? Are there things in my life that got a little bit challenging and I put it down? The people that's taking mental notes, put this in your mind. Persistence will always overcome resistance. Are you being persistent in something, or are you resisting to the point where you're not doing what you're supposed to do? So again, Usain Bolt wasn't even supposed to be the Usain Bolt that we know until he went through all of these things where he had to get his spine realigned, his legs were even, and all of those things. Next slide. So your breakthrough is totally proportional to the effort that you put in. Now, this slide here, I kind of chuckle at it because I know a lot of people that's like this. And to be quite honest, I was kind of this way. I was running in the wrong direction. I was moving fast, but I was going the wrong way. This reminds me of, for those of you who might have seen the movie Life with Eddie Murphy and Martin Lawrence, and they had a character in the movie when they brought him to jail, and they were like, "Why don't this guy? He don't pay attention. He doesn't respond." And he said, "Hey, boss, he can't get right." And sometimes if we're not careful, we can't get right. And sometimes when you can't get right, it means you're getting in your own way. You're expending a great amount of effort, but you're going in the wrong direction. Next slide, which leads to the point that I'm going to make right now. I want you all to ask yourself a question. Are you hustling backwards? What do you mean hustling backwards? Just like I gave the story about can't get right. Sometimes in our life, we could be given a lot of energy. We could be given a lot of passion. We could be given a lot of input, but we're going in the wrong direction. And how does that happen? One, sometimes we fail to plan. Some of us call ourselves very inventive and very creative, and we'll just get an idea and go do something without even thinking it through. My question to you, my question to myself is, when you get an epiphany, a thought, or impulse to do something that's inventive, if you will, or creative, do you take the time to actually plan it out? And if you don't take the time to actually plan it out, that's an easy way to get frustrated and short circuit something in your life that could have been actually redemptive in value. The other reason that some people end up hustling backwards is they walk around with blinders on. People come talk to them and say, "Hey, I see what you're doing. I got a thought for you about maybe another way to consider it, but you don't want to listen, or you're stubborn, or you're stuck in your ways." So a lot of times people are actually hustling backwards. And then another one is you're not really giving the right amount of effort. You may be going in the right direction, but because you're not putting your all in it, because you've lost a little initiative or you lost a little steam, you actually end up hustling backwards. And hustling backwards is a bad thing, because you've demonstrated you had the ability to hustle, but you just got to make sure you're configuring those things the right way. Next slide, please. Now, some of y'all, I don't know if y'all can relate to this, but that guy on the couch, I've been that guy. Matter of fact, I'm trying to figure out over the last few months why my clothes don't fit like they used to, why things seem to be shrinking in my closet, why things aren't aligned the way that they used to be. So when you look at this, are you in a state of inertia? Typically, when we think of the term inertia, we think of it in the sense of physics. For example, an object in motion stays in motion. An object at rest stays at rest. But I want to challenge you all, just making mental notes or otherwise, to examine your life as I define inertia. Here's a couple other definitions of inertia. It's a constant state of rest. A constant state of rest. That's one definition. Another definition is you're resistant to change. So let me make it plain. There are people who are moving, but they're not going anywhere. You have activity, but there's no positive results from the activity. What are the things that you're supposed to do in your life, but you found yourself apathetic, meaning you lost the passion, you've lost the initiative, you've lost the inspiration to do those things. You might be in a state of inertia. What are those things that you're doing, but you're not seeing any good results? You're moving, there's activity, but there's no positive momentum. You might be in a state of inertia. If something isn't going the way you plan and other people offer options, or you have options exposed to you and you're like, I don't want to do it because you're obstinate, or you're resistant to change, you might be in a state of inertia. So I'm gonna come to your house right now. I want you to ask yourself, am I in a state of inertia? Am I resistant to change in regards to my relationship? Have I allowed my relationship to become stagnant to the point where we just passing each other and we're just giving obligatory, how you doing? We're speaking low tones. We're not even, the passion's not there. Are you in a state of inertia for the things that bring you joy? You used to like to read, but you're not reading anymore, or you're not exercising anymore. My challenge to you is to evaluate every area of your life and ask yourself, am I in a state of inertia? Next slide, please. And when you do that, you can look at this gentleman here sitting in the chair. A good perspective on inertia is, again, you're moving, but you're not really going anywhere. It's like you rocking back and forth, but you're not making any progress. Some of us are moving in life like we're on a treadmill. And as we move and as we're making motion, we're not even going forward. So again, my challenge to you is if you find that thing that used to bring you joy, but now you've kind of fallen off, don't feel bad about it. Just do something about it. Your careers and the families that you have and the things that you've been able to do collectively, you have demonstrated that you have the ability to do dynamic things. But you know what's funny? When you get burned out and you get tired, you know the first thing that goes away is self-care. Some of you are taking care of everyone else. You're leaning forward, you're extending yourself for everyone else. But when it comes to yourself, it's like that's the first thing that slips. I want to challenge you to say, let today be the day that I'm going to actually incorporate self-care and blow inertia up out of my life so my activity is redemptive and has value added to it. I tell y'all like I did. I done started a diet. I'm telling you, I can't afford to buy a whole new wardrobe. I need to lose some weight. So I started intermittent fasting and I cut out certain things in my life and I'm already starting to see results. So again, like the Usain Bolt reference, push, continue to be persistent in that thing that makes you who you are. Continue to be focused. I know you have that because you wouldn't be on this call. You wouldn't be one of that select few who's been able to do the things that you've been able to do. Next slide, please. So I'm going to come to your house one more time. How, when we're talking about jump starting our lives, how do we get to a point where we get in a malaise or we get apathetic or we lose passion? I'm going to challenge you to think about this as I speak. The power of value. You look at the picture on the left, you see a junkyard, a heap of stuff that people just threw away. And so a friend of mine, he is a computer genius. One day this is a true story. He was walking down the street and he saw a computer sitting on the side of the road. And it looked like to him, it still had value. But the person that owned it, they threw it away. They were like, I don't see it. It doesn't work the way I want it to work. And they threw it away. He took it home and he fixed it. He taught himself how to program a computer. And so something that somebody else threw away, he took home and he made it into a computer. And guess what? When he became a man, he actually has his own computer maintenance company. He does so many things because he saw something that someone didn't value and he found a way to incorporate it into his lifestyle, which became his lifestyle. So I'm going to say one more thing to you about value. We talk a lot about what we value. Like if I asked you all, what do you value? You all would say similar things. You may say some things that I didn't expect, not right or wrong, but just based on your perspective and life experience. For example, people will say, I value my family. I value hard work. One of my values is loyalty. I value my faith. But I want you to evaluate this as I say this. How much do you value your values? Because it's easy to say, I value this, but how much do you value your values? Let me explain what I'm trying to say. And many times we speak on, we articulate on what we value, but when things get hard or things become frustrated or things become challenging, that's when your values are actually on display. For example, I knew a person that said, I value people being treated fairly. So he was in a job and he saw people being treated unfairly. He witnessed it and he was actually in a position to make something better. And the person that was being treated unfairly, they weren't in a position to do anything because of where they were located within the chain of command. But this guy said, I value people being treated fairly. But when he saw that there was a conflict with this person, he actually valued more not getting involved. When he saw this person being mistreated, and even though he said he valued people being treated fairly, he actually valued more staying in his comfort zone. So some of us say, I have goals in my life. When we're talking about jump starting your life, you say, these are things I want to do for myself, my family, my community. These are my values. And then you got off the road, you got off the path. You became like that battery because you let it sit too long and then things started to corrode or erode around it. And now when you try to get jump started, you needed help. So I'm saying that to you to say, take a real look. I hear people say, I value my family. But when you home, you're always in the back room. I value my children, but you're not even checking in on them. You're providing for them, but they need you. So again, the whole point of this slide is sometimes people toss stuff away that they don't see value in because they just stop working with it. I'm saying to you all, evaluate your values. And because you're good and strong and focused people, you're going to make the right adjustments. Next slide, please. So how do we take this thing to a level that causes us to be more dominant, more dynamic, more impactful? I'm glad you asked. Listen, I'm gonna hit y'all with something. The odds of being born in our country is 1 in 400 trillion. 1 in 400 trillion just to be born. So I see people, I go in a convenience store to get gas, and I'm paying for my gas, and they're in line buying lottery tickets. And I'm like, excuse me, sir, but do you know when you were born, you actually hit the lottery in life? Because the odds of being born are simply astronomical. So why would you be born a unique, dynamic, wonderful person? No one's ever been configured like you, but so many people, because they allowed their life to kind of get off the rails, they die a copy of something they were never designed to be. So when I talk to people, one of the things I like to say is, you still have something to do. Like today, this day, we are as young as we ever gonna be for the rest of our lives. As we look at the clock, it's ticking down every day, but you're still here. That means whatever you came here to do, you haven't finished. Whatever I came here to do, I haven't finished, which speaks to this slide. You have to be the first believer in your life. I already talked about Usain Bolt, where he had a configuration, he had a malady in his body that prohibited him from even walking well. And then he said, "But I believe I can run." Usain, your leg, you have this spine thing. Why would you set yourself up to be embarrassed? And I'm saying this to you to say, there is something. If you allow yourself to quiet your mind, some of you are going to be reminded of what you're supposed to be doing now. Some of you are going to be reminded of the next thing in your life that's going to add value to others' lives. Do you realize if you see a tree and you see fruit hanging on that tree, you realize the fruit doesn't belong to the tree? The fruit belongs to everything around the tree. The tree can be sustained and continue to live without the fruit, but the tree provides fruit to everything in its ecosystem. What point am I trying to make? The fruit is representative of your talents. And so if you get comfortable in your life and you get an inertia where you're resistant to change and you're in constant state of rest, you're like, hey, my life is good. Hey, I'm comfortable. Me and my family are good. You still have fruit to bear for other people. So I want you to blow the dust off of those things and say, I have to be the first believer. But one of the most important things about being the first believer is this. Many times when you're the first believer, it means that you're the only believer. What do you mean? I don't know. Like, I wrote a book. I had a best-selling book last December in the category of inspiration. And when I first wrote that book, one of my friends that was a PhD said, "Hey, Anthony, why would anyone want to hear what you have to say?" Because he was so, quote, intelligent. But let me say this to you all. Don't let a person who can't read proofread your vision. I'm going to say that one more time. Don't let a person who can't read proofread your vision. Some of you need to have your lives jump started because somebody told you something and you believed it and they were wrong. The second worst lie in the world is when somebody tells you about yourself and you believe it. The worst lie in the world is the lie you tell yourself and you believe it. You're not finished. Yeah, you got off track or whatever, but you're not finished yet. And if you're on track, do me a favor. Go help somebody that's off track. So none of us gets a pass when it comes to this first believer, because the person you're talking to, they're 1 in 400 trillion as well. So remember, you have to be the first believer. And most time when you're the first believer, people think you crazy. You inventing something. You have a new concept. And they're like, we've never done it like that before. I met a guy. I just got back from the Dominican Republic on Sunday. I met a guy. He's 34 years old. People told him he was crazy. He was askew in his mind and different things. And he came up with an invention and he sold it to this other country. And he's a multi-millionaire. But if he would have listened to all those people, so at 34 years old, he doesn't work anymore. Now, he says, I have to continue to work to help other people. So remember, be the first believer. And if you're the only believer, that's okay. Because a person who can't read can't see your vision. They can't proofread your vision. Next slide. This has been a hard 15 months for all of us. What are some tricks to get back on our feet? I'm glad you asked. One, what I would tell people to do, I did this myself. One, give yourself grace. Because let me give you this. I'm going to deviate because I think this is important. So in America, 50% of us, every person you meet in America, 50% of Americans have experienced a traumatic event in their life before the age of 14. 50%. In America, by the time they turn 24, 75% of us have experienced trauma in our life. So what am I saying? When we went through these last 15 months, like you just illuminated, that's been a traumatic event for us. So the first thing you have to allow yourself to do is say, man, this was messed up. This was hard. I'm angry. I'm frustrated. I lost some things. I have to recalibrate. I said this to you all before, but I'm going to say this again. I'm going to give you all an exercise. I want you to write down everything that you lost during COVID. My uncle died. I lost my job. I broke up from somebody. I lost my passion. I want you to write down everything that you lost over a period of time. Then I want you to write another list of everything you still have left. Man, I'm on this call with other people around the country. That means I got electricity. That means I'm in my right mind. That means I have food. What you're going to find is the list of what you have left is much longer than what you lost. So here's what I'm saying to your question. Many times when we deal with grief associated with trauma, we only focus on grief at the point of pain. So we look at the grief and say, oh man, that hurt me, that bothered me, and we run from it. So grief starts to haunt us. So when you only deal with grief at the point of your pain, you never see things that you still have. All you see is lack and loss. So that's why I told you to physically write that list. I did that. So the first thing it did for me was it allowed me to fully deal with my grief. And I dealt with it. Then it allowed me to say, what do I have left? And now I said, what am I going to do with what I have left? So once you do, so that's your first assignment. Because if you wrote that, then you want to do something. So I know you will. So that's the first thing you do. The second thing you do is give yourself grace. You all are so good at saying somebody make a mistake. Oh, it's okay. You can get behind. You can get past it. You can jumpstart yourself. Here's some things you can do. You give everyone so much grace, but when it comes to yourself, you're extraordinarily hard on yourself. So give yourself grace. Thirdly, you still here. You still 1 in 400 trillion. So that means you still have something to do. What are some of the key trials you have seen over the years in former players? Look, I will tell you, when you look at people, well, let me answer this other one before I get to that one. So let me say this. Give yourself grace, line up what you went through, acknowledge you have. And when you write your list, this is the thing it's going to do too. It's going to give you gratitude, because when you write what you have left, you're going to say, wow. See, when you have gratitude, that kind of gives you fuel for what you're going through. So I would just say, when you're grateful, and the other thing I would say is, look, y'all on this line, y'all are connected. I was in the military for 28 years. I lived in a subculture of America. Less than 1% of our country serves in the military. So it's just like you and your families. You all live in a subculture that most people can't relate to. And to the second question, what are the trials that I see with former players? You do the same thing a lot of military people do. When you get out, you go isolate. Or you get into a realm where you feel like you can't relate to people, but you really can, because you still have the human dynamic. So for those of you on this line, I would fight to reconnect with myself first, those things that make you who you are, and then like-minded people like yourselves. That's so I see. So what I see in a lot of former players is they put a lot of their identity into what they did, and what they did and what your family members did is great. But that was just a portion of your life. That's why I said you have more to do. But if all you focusing on is what you lost, you can't be creative. So let me give you an example of how what former players go through and others. when you dwell on the past, like worrying, I give people my definition of worrying is you keep rehearsing the problem without a solution. So it's almost like if you turn the computer on, you're trying to watch a video and the video keeps buffering like this, that means it doesn't have enough bandwidth. It doesn't have a good connection. So it just keeps buffering. That's what worrying does. Why don't I feel good about this? Why don't I fit in this community? So you're looking at something in the past, and when you're looking in the past, you can't move forward. So some of you need to have a bad memory. Like you have to say, look, what we did before was great, but we have greater stuff in us. Some of y'all need to be writing books. Some of y'all need to open a restaurant. Some of y'all need to restore relationships with your family because they need you. And oh, by the way, you need them. So the biggest trials I see is finding a sense of belonging. If you look at one of the theories, it's called Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and it talks about survival and belonging, all social, and it goes up to self-actualization. Belonging is a big one, and belonging is tied to purpose. So you have to find something that you connect to. So take that time to reconnect to yourself. And this leads to my next slide. These are some good questions. Now go back one, actually. Actually, go back one. I made a mistake. So let me hit you with this. Actually, the two questions you have are very important. And this is where people get in trouble. So I was in Charleston, South Carolina, doing some work for the military about 2 months ago. And this young lady came up to me. They called me Chief because I was a chief in the Air Force. And she said, Chief, when you talk to people, I want you to tell them something. This might be the most important thing I say to you all today. She said, tell them the reason that people get depressed in many cases, unless it's chemically based chemical depression, which is a very small percentage of people. She said the reason that most people get depressed or they go through a hard time is that they have too many average days. I said, what do you mean? She said, people, you wake up in the morning, right? And you look outside, and if you see the clouds, she said, even though the clouds look similar than they did yesterday, you've never seen that particular configuration before. You've never seen the clouds configured that way. Even as we stand here and we watch this, we commune on this podcast, our bodies, the physiology of our body is changing as we're here. She said people's problems are they look at every day like it was yesterday. Why can't I move on? You moving on because you think today is like yesterday. So you don't see nuances. You don't see opportunity. You see this is just one more, link in the chain. And she said, tell them that you should never have an average day. So I'm gonna come to your house. She said, you have to tell them that they can't be ordinary. She said, even if you're having a hard time, you can create an extraordinary moment in your day. For example, if anyone's been depressed, well, you can't, we ain't got a chat going. I've been depressed. I've been sad. I used to drink to try to hide my pain. I'm not gonna lie to y'all. I'm open to y'all. And so she said, even when you sad, if you find somebody to share your pain with, to listen, to speak to you, to speak life into you, to help jumpstart you, even though your circumstance might not change discernibly in that moment, when you share your pain becomes half. So you're not carrying that load by yourself. You have so many resources with the PA and other things and people in your community. But when we have pain, we say it's mine. And now pain becomes like a garment that we're wearing. And let me say something to y'all. It's like a season, like wintertime. I wear a winter coat, and because I needed that for that season. But then if you see me walking around on July 15th with a winter coat on, I'm wearing something out of season. I need to take that coat off. And some of us been wearing the garment of sadness, the garment of despair, the garment of doubt, the garment of regret. And it's time to take that off. So when you're having a bad moment, you say, hey, I'm going through something, and you find somebody that you can speak to, you can halve your pain. So she said, even in a tough moment, you can take an ordinary day and have an extraordinary moment because you connected with somebody in a tough time. So what a lot of us do, we isolate, especially men. A lot of times men don't want to speak on stuff, and men have this equation in their head. They say distance equals safety. If I don't know how to fix it, I run away from it. That's why I named my book, You Can't Run Away From You. distance does not equal safety. If you've had a problem for a long time and you're in a malaise, you need jump starting, you have demonstrated if you had a problem in a long time that you don't know how to fix it yourself. So the key to it is this though. Imagine like all the pieces to your puzzle that represent your problem are inside of you. You have all the pieces inside of you to fix it, but you need somebody to help you put those pieces together. So that's how in a bad moment, you can actually have an extraordinary moment going through hard times. I guarantee you, if some of you think about some of the most challenging moments you had in your life, you will reflect on it was not fun going through, but the lessons that you learned. And so sometimes we have to go through those things to get the lesson. You know, if you ever read the book of Job, the name Job means persecuted. I'm like, why would you name me persecuted? So now you're going through stuff. But there are billions of people around the world that learned about fortitude and patience and perseverance from a guy named Job. On the other side of your test is your testimony to help other people. So I said this about the average days. If you're going through a hard time, then even in the midst of a hard time, so let me tell you, go back to this millionaire. So the kid I met in the Dominican Republic, he says, I am so wealthy, I don't have to work anymore. He said, but I got to tell you something, Brink. I'm depressed, man, because I thought if I achieved stuff, I was going to feel better about my life. I thought if I acquired stuff, so I put all my effort hoping that when I put this ladder against, I climbed up, it would lead to something to make me feel better about myself. And he said, all I did was when I got to the top, it was leaning up against the wall and I had nowhere to go. I said, but guess what? I'm talking to you right now. So now he asked me to be his life coach, which was like, I wasn't planning on doing, but he's a good guy. So I'm saying that to you all to say, the best things in life don't cost anything. A good moment. But if you walk outside and you look at everything like it always was, you miss the nuances. You got people in your life that's changing, evolving, and they have stuff that they can offer you. But if you just look at it like it's the same old person, the same old circumstance, you will never extract the extra out of the ordinary, making your day an extraordinary day. It may not be the best day all day, but find something extra in your day. You might, so I'm gonna give y'all an assignment. If you don't journal, I encourage you all to start journaling, because journaling gets your thoughts out. Hey, this happened today. It don't have to be long and drawn out. Hey, this is how I was feeling. Here's what I took from it. But one of the things I want you to do in your journal is this. Every day, I want you to write 3 things down that you're grateful for. I got up today. I'm in my right mind. I actually talked to somebody, whatever it is. Write 3 things down that you're grateful for. And then I want you to do one thing for somebody. And it could be something as simple as calling them, encouraging them, and telling them some things about themselves. But that's your goal. Every day I try to do something for somebody, because when I'm doing something for somebody, then I feel better about myself. I feel like I still have value. Not that I have to do stuff for people to have value. So that's your assignment, is to find something that 3 things every day that you reflect on. And even if you have problems in your relationship, if those people are still there, do like Usain Bolt and fight for what you want and dig in for what you want. Since we've been on this call, we are older now, which means our window is closing, but we still have a great opportunity. So I want you to be extraordinary in everything you do. Next slide. The same effort that you gave to be significant and dynamic, I want you to give in your life. You know how to dig. You know how to grind. You know how to push. And some of you did everything for everyone else, and you become less of yourself. So if you slipped up, give yourself grace, forgive yourself, and just know that you're still here, which means you still have value. Y'all have heard me say this before. Every day in America, 7,000 people die. Today in America, there will be 7,000 people die. Tomorrow in America, there will be 7,000 people, 2.5 million over the course of the year. If you still here, fight. So we talked about what it takes, the causes of us to become, have a sense of malaise. We talked about you got to push through. Don't run from pain. Embrace pain. Let pain become instructive, and then understand, evaluate your life. Because we may have allowed ourselves to be resistant to change. We're in a constant state of rest where we're not moving forward. You're better than that. Ain't nothing wrong with resting, but you can't rest all the time because you got purpose. Be the first believer. I'm gonna tell you the best cologne. I'm not a handsome guy. I get that. But I used to tell people, I said, hey man, I ain't gotta be handsome. I said the best cologne in the world is self-confidence. When you believe in yourself and you don't need external validation, people are drawn to you. But when you're sad and you need to be jump started, that energy, you're reverberating the wrong type of energy. You're accomplished people. You just forgot about some stuff. You forgot about your makeup. That's why when that LL Cool J made that song, he said, "Don't call it a comeback. I've been here for years." That's some of y'all. When you show up big again in your life, it ain't a comeback. You've been here for years. You just had to retool. Then the other thing, live your life like you will never have another average day. My day made better because I just talked to y'all. I'm happy about that thing. I'm happy I got the engagement. I'm happy for the questions. Matter of fact, if you got more questions, put them in. But never have another average day. My man David Goggins, when he do push-ups, he say, I don't even start counting push-ups till they hurt. I said, when they start hurting, that's when it counts. The things that you need in your life to become the best version of you, don't even start counting reps, your life reps, until it start hurting. That shows your resolve. So we got like 8.5 minutes. If people have questions or comments, you can chime in. What are some of the things you can do when you're feeling good and motivate to help people and help people maintain and make sure you don't fall off track? Um, what I would tell you is this: to thine own self be true. I didn't really get into this one, but a lot of people who do things for other people, um, you've heard of compassion fatigue, where you give, you give, you give, you give, and even though you didn't witness or experience what the people were going through that you helped, you see this in a lot of caregivers, people with family members with different things like Alzheimer's or MS or different things. They're doing great things and they're giving and giving and giving, and then they fall off. Matter of fact, there was a study done in Great Britain of healthy caregivers of patients of Alzheimer's. And in many cases, the caregivers died before their family members because they stopped taking care of themselves. So the best thing I would tell you is when you get up in the morning, before you help anybody else, you got to help yourself. Now, if you start in a journal, you say 3 things today I'm thankful for. When you start off with gratitude, you're grateful. And so when you get to a point where you're going to pour out, you need to make sure you have a full vessel, because the people that you're giving to, in many cases, even though they might care about you, they don't have the ability to give back to you in the same way. So all you're doing is giving and giving and giving. So the best thing I would say to that question is make sure that it starts with you and that you don't compromise those things you do unless it's a significant situation. Any other questions? Man, this has been great. I'm sitting here sweating. I feel like I done ran a marathon because I tried to give you everything I have because you deserve the best and you're here for a reason. So if you came up here today, you're looking for something. And I hope there was something that you got out of this that you found that you could reflect on. Because I always tell people, they take a step back and assess where you are. And then you're smart enough to do introspection to say, how do I feel about that thing? What ability do I have to affect that circumstance? And then dig in, because these are hard times. I mean, life is not for the weak of heart. It's not for the faint of heart. But there's some magnificently, joyful things. I have a picture of my cousin I see every day because he died tragically at a young age, like 30 years ago. But not a day goes by I don't think about my cousin Mark. And I say that to say the best thing we can do while we're still here is honor those who poured into our lives. So that's what I have. Any other questions, any other comments, or anything? This is your time, folks. We got like 5 minutes. I mean, I say we have to use them all, but I'm not going anywhere. What are some key traits and skills you have learned along your journey? Um, I had a lot of issues. I was a some of you know my story, but when I was 5 years old, my family told me we were going for a ride, and we ended up at a hospital, and I was in the hospital for 6 months, going through chemotherapy. And many times people didn't come visit me because one, we were poor, so a lot of times the car didn't work, and then the other reason was they thought they were going to get sick or ill from me, and so I basically sat in the hospital for 6 months as a 5 year old. And when I got out of the hospital, I was one that 50% of the age before the age of 14 was traumatized. I was traumatized. I had separation anxiety. I had abandonment issues. I would sabotage every relationship I had. So one of the greatest lessons I learned was that I can't allow what's happened to me, whether someone did it or I did it to myself. I can't allow that to affect future relationships. So one of my greatest lessons was I was afraid to let people love me because I thought they would leave me. And so for me, the essence of life was for me was becoming vulnerable. And when I allowed myself to become vulnerable, I've had some of the most redemptive relationships. That's why I told you before I used to drink alcohol. I was an alcoholic. I used to do all kinds of stuff because I didn't love myself and I didn't think I deserved certain things. I don't feel that way now. But probably my greatest lesson was that that's why I told you when you're going through pain and somebody's there, your pain is halved. And then even through sharing the pain, you find a connection with someone. So for me, that was one of my best ones. For me, I became a perfectionist. So even though I was highly successful in my life, my success was actually geared because I was trying to compensate for something. That's why I'm not really impressed with successful people, because many successful people are compensating for something they didn't have. There are many successful people who are well balanced, but to me, success is just in many cases just means you know how to take care of yourself. I'm more concerned with significant people who do things for other people. That's why I took all my pain and I turned it into a curriculum, because there's so many people that had maybe not the same experience, but they had the same reaction because the brain's response to trauma is the same. Physiological response to trauma is the same. So it doesn't matter what the name. Like when people say PTSD, they think, well, if you're in the war or you were a cop, no, you can have PTSD when you witnessed child abuse or you were molested or you saw a car accident. So my thing, I just tell people embrace it, understand it, unpack it, and let that pain fuel you to be better and help other people. That's what I would say to that. Look, so here's your homework assignments. Your homework assignment one is write a list of the things that you lost. Some of y'all might have lost your mind. You got it back. And that so getting it back goes on a good list. But write a list of what you lost. Write a list of what you still have. Every day, get in your journal. Write 3 things you're grateful for, and one thing that you did for somebody else. And it could be simple. It don't need to cost money. Um, and then also never look at a day like it's the same. Look at the nuances of each day. So yesterday, quick story. I'm in a restaurant picking up food. Me and my godfather. We go in the restaurant and the lady's like, "Oh, you want a seat?" I said, "No, man, we ordered." She said, "Oh man," she said, "Nobody's here." And I said, so I could tell something. I said, "How's it going?" She says, "Real slow." So I gave her $20, right? She said, "Oh my God, thank you." I'm like, "It's $20." So it was a guy in the back. She said, "Well, I'm gonna give him 10." I said, "I tell you what, why don't you give him 20 and you keep your 20?" Listen, y'all, she started crying. She said, "You don't know what I'm going through. And it's just 20." I said, "I'm going to tell you something." And I ain't trying to preach to y'all. I said, "But God knows your address." I said, "I gave it to you because someone gave to me." And I'm telling y'all that to say, look for the beauty in each day. Look for the gift that you can give. And I thank you because I know that you will jumpstart the things in your life because you'll never look at anything the same way. When you eat that sandwich, you enjoy that sandwich. When you're sitting with somebody, you make a moment. That's all life is. When you fell in love, it's because you noticed stuff. When you got in the malaise, you stop noticing stuff. So slow down, take a breath, give yourself grace for who you are and what you went through. And if you still here, which you are, dust yourself off and keep swinging for the freaking fence. It has been my privilege and my honor to speak to you today. If I missed something, please charge it to my head and not my heart. I love you all, and there's nothing you can do about it. I look forward to the point where I can hug y'all around the neck and we can see each other. And if anybody wants to reach out to me, the Players Association have my information. I'll send you my book for free because I love y'all. So y'all could be on my list of something I did because y'all helped my day. God bless you. God keep you. Go out there and do your thing. Peace and blessings to you.